Galadriel, said Frodo. I will give you the One Ring if you ask for it. It is too great a matter for me. Galadriel laughed with a sudden, clear laugh. Wise the Lady Galadriel may be, she said, yet here she has met her match in courtesy. Gently are you revenged for my testing of your heart at our first meeting. You begin to see with a keen eye. I do not deny that my heart has greatly desired to ask what you offer. For many long years I have pondered what I might do should the great ring come into my hands, and behold, it was brought within my grasp. The evil that was devised long ago works on in many ways, whether Sauron himself stands or falls. Would not that have been a noble deed to set to the credit of his ring, if I had taken it by force or fear from my guest? And now, at last, it comes. You will give me the ring freely. In place of the Dark Lord, you will set up a queen, and I shall not be dark, but beautiful and terrible as the morning and the night, fair as the sea and the sun and the snow upon the mountain, dreadful as the storm and the lightning, stronger than the foundations of the earth. All shall love me and despair. She lifted up her hand, and from the ring that she wore there issued a great light that illuminated her alone and left all else dark. She stood before Frodo, seeming now tall beyond measurement and beautiful beyond enduring, terrible and worshipful. Then she let her hand fall, and the light faded, and suddenly she laughed again. And lo, she was shrunken, a slender elf woman, clad in simple white, whose gentle voice was soft and sad. I passed the test, she said. I will diminish, and I go into the west, and remain Galadriel. I wanted to read you that part. I jumped on here because I really have realized that the spiritual ego is kind of what we are dealing with right now in this new age, because of the consciousness shift in a lot of people and a great awakening happening across the world. People are experiencing a spiritual ego. That is when you wake up into your identity as a spiritual being rather than just a physical being in a physical world. So how do we now deal with this type of ego? And I have been coming to terms with kind of realizing how I have been dealing with it too, because as I have made this channel and kind of came out more with my own personal thoughts, I've had to struggle with this, because here I am coming live in front of people, telling people my deepest feelings, my deepest thoughts, and my spiritual truths that I feel and that I perceive. And so I have had to deal with the spiritual ego. And I thought that it would be great for me to jump on and help others that might be dealing with this too. I actually wrote down 7 ways in which I have learned how to balance my spiritual ego. And I think that this is what we're seeing, is that people are coming into an ego as a spiritual being rather than just a human, because now people are awakening into themselves as spiritual beings, having a material experience in this world. So these are the 7 things that I wanted to recommend that has helped me. And this is what I have had to personally work with and just watch, because as I went through my awakening and I wanted to help people, what happens is, especially it happens to spiritual teachers or those that enter into kind of a role or try to have a profession of helping people spiritually. Sometimes you can identify with that spiritual identification of helping others. And then that's when you take on the ego of an earth angel, a starseed. And so you have to watch yourself, because at the same time, you have to remain very humble and work in harmony with other souls. Otherwise, what happens is people who take on spiritual egos, they are quickly corrected by the collective, because very much in the beginning of the Silmarillion, we learn the story that Tolkien was trying to tell, was what happens when spiritual ego gets the better of you. And it's very connected to pride. And Melkor was an Ainur that was helping build the universe that Middle Earth took place in with the other Ainur, but he tried to increase the part assigned to him. All the other Ainur were singing their notes and singing, their music, and they were creating music. And then Melkor decided to increase his own part, and this is what it says about it here. It says here, "But now Iluvatar sat and hearkened, and for a great while it seemed good to him, for in the music there were no flaws. But as the theme progressed, it came into the heart of Melkor to interweave matters of his own imagining that were not in accord with the theme of Iluvatar, for he sought therein to increase the power and glory of the part assigned to himself. To Melkor, among the Ainur, had been given the greatest gifts of power and knowledge. And he had a share in all the gifts of his brethren. So to Melkor, he felt that he had been given the greatest gifts in power and knowledge. But in actuality, he had a share in the gifts of his brethren, in his other brothers and sisters of the Ainur. He had gone often alone into the void, places seeking the imperishable flame, for desire grew hot within him to bring into being things of his own. And it seemed to him that Iluvatar took no thought for the void, and he was impatient for its emptiness. Yet he found not the fire, for it was with Iluvatar. But being alone, he had begun to conceive thoughts of his own, unlike those of his brethren. Some of these thoughts he now wove into his music, and straightway discord arose about him. And many that sang nigh him grew despondent, and their thought was disturbed, and their music faltered. But some began to attune their music to his, rather than to the thought which they had at first. When you increase your part as a spiritual being, when you go through your awakening on earth and you try to increase that part that you play, what ends up happening is you can either cause followers to follow you kind of blindly because they see you as having brilliant wisdom that they cannot have, so they follow you, or you simply look like you're arrogant and haughty to those that also have awakened and are realizing that, wait a minute, you're increasing your role. You're not playing the game fairly. You're increasing yourself in a spiritual light and a spiritual power on earth. And so that's what we're dealing with in this new age. That is probably the red flags that we have to watch with new age teachers and gurus that are out there. And this is very important for me because I also have to watch this too. So I think this is very good that I think we're all kind of being drawn aware to the spiritual ego now, because that's something that I think was known in a few people in the past, and those became tyrants and cult leaders and leaders of religion that created a following. But now in this new age, in this time of where the collective is awakening together through the help of the internet, through just the frequency and the waves and the vibrations that we're in this world together, we are all kind of experiencing an ego spirituality now. And so this is the way that I have helped myself, and if it can help others, especially those that are thinking about helping others, this might help you. Number one, watch other people and delight in their story. See them as creators themselves. When you awaken into your creator self and you get into this spiritual awakening, you may have a tendency to sit back and watch the world through your eyes, and then everything else becomes kind of part of your movie, and then that's how you can increase your role, which can be a good thing. Everybody should definitely go for their dreams and everything like that, but you have to also play in harmony with others, or at least try. Because if you don't, that's when you get the resistance, because the collective likes to be at an equal state. And so if there's a soul that's acting out spiritually unequal towards others, then it's going to correct itself naturally through the actions and through the emotions and through the truth coming out of others, from others. So what I suggest is, and what's helped me is, I watch movies, I watch YouTube videos, I watch other people, and I enjoy their story. And I focus on them as a creator. And I look at them through that way, where I'm not simply experiencing this world as a creator, but I'm also experiencing this world with other creators. And so that's what I can suggest that has helped me. Watch other people, observe other people, try to get out of your mind. If you're feeling like you're in your spiritual ego, if your ego is telling you that you are above others, or that you're more awakened or more enlightened than others, or that you have a bigger role to play than others, try to get out of that ego, which is really a defense. It's really a mask that you try to put on to just increase your part to feel special. And so in order to get past that, you have to kind of focus back on others and look at their story, look at their life. And what I like to do is I like to look at others and watch them and see them as their own creative self going through their own, life. And that really helps me. Number 2, don't praise yourself for helping others. If you start to do that spiritually, just do your thing. If you start to increase spiritual knowledge in others and you help others spiritually, either those around you or you start a business, don't praise yourself for it, because that will increase your ego's identification of your spiritual nature on earth in this material world, which causes that problem. So try to resist the urge to praise yourself and just try to enter into that place of humility where you just kind of feel like it's just your job, or it's what you can give to others for goodness sake, just helping them out, seeing a soul, need a little reminder. But don't praise yourself and tell yourself that you're so spiritually enlightened, or you're so spiritually great, or you're so spiritually above others because you help others. So that's really important. That's what I do not do. And it's really helped me in that spiritual ego. The other thing is, don't get caught up in calling yourself a revolutionary, a catalyst, or a master. If you put those kind of titles on yourself in the spiritual idea, that's when you start to build that spiritual ego identity. And then your ego then takes that identity that you're a spiritual master, you're a spiritual revolutionary, you're a spiritual catalyst. And that's the problem. And then that can be taken wrongly by others, but it also can increase your ego identity on earth as a spiritual being, which is something you really have to balance, because we can end up having a Melkor who's trying to increase his spiritual part and push forth his vision so much that he tramples on others. And so that's really important. And that's what I try not to do. The only thing that I would ever call myself is, I like to be a spiritual guide or a spiritual teacher, but I'm not a master. I am still learning. I'm still growing. Every day I am coming to new realizations about myself. And I'm happy to share that with everybody that joins me on my channel. And I like to connect to people that way. But I would say that if we can stay away from those labels, then some of the people that we have today that are being called out for being cult leaders, it's because they have put those titles on themselves, and it's not because their intentions are impure, that they wanted to create maybe that leverage over people. I mean, it could be, but it's also that if you give yourself that title, those who are not really yet spiritually awakened to their creator self, then they will follow that person blindly, thinking that they have all the answers. So you want to be careful about that spiritual title you give yourself. Number 4, when you have your spiritual awakening, recognize the fact that people can help themselves and would without you in another timeline. There is a temptation for you. Your ego will tell you that that person would not be where they are without me. And so as a spiritual teacher, you have to tell yourself that that person would find their way. It just so happened in this particular world, in this particular timeline, in this particular universe, that you came across that person. And that is for your experience as well, to meet that soul. It is not just for the experience of that soul and you to increase, their knowledge or wisdom. So that's also important, is just recognize the fact that that person, it's kind of something that I like to tell myself, is that that person would have received help even without me. And that also supports the idea that the answers always are within you, yourself, and that whoever you meet at that moment, whether it's a spiritual teacher or a guru, they are only just a mirror for you in that moment, to be a mirror to you, to remind you of who you are. Number 5, temper yourself to not play a role bigger than others. If it happens, fall back a bit, take a break. So this happened to me when I started. This is why I'll never do another interview, because my vision is very strong in an idea of what I want the earth to be like. And what happened was I started to put that out there into the public, and then that's when the sensationalism happened. And that's what I think other teachers are doing too. And then that's the problem. And that can run away with you, because then you could be only known for that identity. But really, it was just a means of a way to have people understand where your visions come from, or, where your perspectives are coming from. But it's in no way your identity. And I think that that's something that your ego likes to play tricks on you, and likes to, kind of fool you into that, the idea that you can play a role that's bigger than others. But really, truly, everybody does their part. And it's really important to see that. And even if you do have a place where you have a bigger role in society as far as reaching other people, you still have to kind of talk to yourself or train yourself to see that it's still equal to what others are doing as well out there in the world. And I think that that's where Melkor fell down in the Silmarillion book, is that he wanted to assign a greater part to himself, and instead of working in harmony with others. Number 6, resist the urge to exaggerate your abilities and powers under the urge to become recognized for your spirituality, or to build a reputation that you're a more powerful being than normal humans. I think that's really important. One way that I have made sure that I stayed clear of this was that on my channel, I make sure that everybody knows that any kind of intuitive or psychic abilities or things that I have, everybody else can have, and that you can cultivate it as well. And that the extrasensory abilities is something that's within all humans. It is something that is being unlocked in many, and it is something that is part of our DNA. And I think it's part of the junk DNA that scientists have said it's junk DNA. But what's happening is we are being evolved at this point. We are experiencing kind of unlocking these DNA codes within ourselves. And so many people are tapping into this. It's not that some people are born with more gifts than others or more abilities. It's that they're tapping into it first, and then the rest are going to follow along. And that's what our human civilization is actually evolving to. I really, truly believe that. And that's what I tell myself, to help not exaggerate abilities and powers. Because if you see a guru or a spiritual teacher do that and try to exaggerate their powers, I've seen some people try to suggest that they have more powers than others. And I think that that's a red flag. That's something that you definitely need to watch out for in the new age. And it's something that if you feel yourself doing, you could just remind yourself that other people have their abilities too, and that they're tapping into them, and they will continue on coming into those powers. Number 7, it's okay to have students and followers, but make sure that you really listen and respect them as source too. Like as source consciousness too, you really have to see your fellow beings as creator beings as well. It's not that you are the creator and you're experiencing yourself helping others and they're like extras in your movie where you can experience yourself as a spiritual teacher. It's that they are creator beings that are also experiencing the awakening process. And you at that moment in time may be a mirror for them to help them in that awakening as somebody once helped you in your awakening as well. No doubt in my mind, every single spiritual guru and spiritual teacher has had another mirror in their past to awaken them to who they are today. And that's kind of the cycle that continues. So that's what I have seen is that if you teach yourself that everybody that you are helping is a creator being as well, and that they have equal amount of power as you can really help to curb that spiritual ego that likes to creep in. And I think that we're just experiencing the spiritual ego because we are in the time of the spiritual being. And this is the new age where, humans are coming across spiritual knowledge and are expanding their consciousness and they're thinking that way. So then the ego on earth is going to take on that identity. And what I believe is that when we leave from the material world, we actually all go back into being part of the same source. And it's something that we just don't experience in our division when we are in the subjective experience of source consciousness when we're on earth. But we eventually all go back to source consciousness. And then the multidimensional aspect of us happens where we, in your next hereafter, next life in existence, I believe that you will experience yourself as another creator being in another life, in another adventure, in another story. So that's what you just can help your spiritual ego get over, the idea that you're basically God having your experience, and you could just see, if you could see other people as also having their spiritual experience as well, and also being creator beings, that can truly help. We see that Galadriel in The Lord of the Rings, in the Fellowship, she almost took on that spiritual ego, where her whole time in Lorien has been her, being praised for her wisdom, and she has been in her Lothlorien realm and people have looked up to her, but she has managed to stay a humble elf during that time. She's never really been a tyrant or have tried to force her visions on others. And then she takes the Ring of Power and she gets a little bit of taste of where, she would almost become just as powerful as Sauron, not in the same aesthetic, but she would definitely try to push her ideas on others. And she would cause people to, fall in love with her and despair because they could never reach to her height. And that's what the spiritual ego does. It tricks you into thinking that you're the only one on earth having your spiritual experience and awakening into your creator self. So as I do the creator workshop, I'm glad I did this video because I'm going to continue doing the creator workshop in the Pleiades University of Wisdom. And I hope that I can increase that idea that truly everyone is a creator being, and there's something that you have to watch out for, because when you awaken to that fact and you start to take control of your life, then you might feel a temptation to take control over other lives. So that is the temptation that a lot of people are experiencing when you enter into yourself as a spiritual person. So you're awakening. It's almost like you're having your second awakening or your third awakening, and you have to now get past that spiritual ego and see everyone as part of a collective, and we're working together. And so when people in this new age try to increase that spiritual part on earth, because the collective is awakening together, we're going to hear about that, and there's going to be a rebalancing. And like I said, it's going to come in the form of people speaking out against those people. I believe in a new future where this is, to honest, my vision. I cannot be more serious about this. I believe we will not have religions. We won't really have teachers or messengers or prophets or gurus. But I feel at some point in the future that everybody will be truly a sovereign being and truly in charge of themselves spiritually. And we will experience the world through that next experience of everyone being very aware of their creator self. And it really just comes down to the power that you wield it in what direction. As soon as you learn your creator self, like, what do you do with that potential to create? And hopefully the more and more aligned we become, we create together a vision of peace and harmony, rather than other people trying to dominate over others spiritually. So that's just something that we might have to look out for. But I do believe that eventually in the future, we will not have to have gurus or messengers or teachers. And my vision is that we would all be completely on a spiritually equal level, such as the elves. They represent that in the elven realms. I know that they look towards Celeborn and Galadriel and Lorien and some of the other realms in Lord of the Rings. But the message there is that they don't always go to them, and they're really there for just kind of guidance and kind of keep, a sense of law. But really, all the elves are very, very sovereign of themselves. They take care of themselves. They're aware of themselves. So there's no feeling of being lost without Galadriel. And that's something we have to watch out for. In the new age, we have to make sure that people do not feel like they doubt their creator self and they look for somebody else to give them the answers. And I hope that I can empower more people to get to that point, because that's my vision, is that everybody be totally sovereign and not need to go for guidance, except in needs of companionship and just reminding. But truly, I want people to feel really empowered, and that, if that spiritual ego kind of creeps in, these are ways that you can help kind of relax about that. What I like to do is, when the spiritual ego ever tries to tell me something about my identity, I just take a break. I just simply just kind of rest from helping people. I just go out into nature and I just do my thing, and I focus on others. I take myself out of my own story in my head, and I look at other people's YouTubes, and I watch things that are completely not spiritually even aligned, but it's more just about their life. And I like to hear just people are brilliant. And when I focus on their brilliance, then I am able to take a step back, and that's how I get out of my spiritual ego. And that's how I keep a kind of a harmony sense, because that's really, I think, very important to me. So I hope that this helped you. And if you are experiencing that at all, then maybe some of these ways can definitely help you. If you see this creep into those that you follow and those that, have new age spiritual organizations and things like that, then that's something that you can keep in mind. Is this person coming from spiritual ego, or are they just kind of playing a part very equally with others? So that's something I think that I hope that can help others. And especially going forward with this Elven Path organization, the co-founders and I, we are very, very serious about this. We want to make sure that everybody, we'll give some of the information, we'll definitely help with that, but we want everybody to be completely sovereign and to be able to feel empowered on their own, to make their own choices, and to really recognize themselves as a creator being on their own. And that is so important to us. So I hope that this helped. I felt like I had to jump right on, and because this all just kind of came together today. It made a lot of sense. So yeah, I hope you all have a great night. Thanks for jumping on. I didn't tell anybody, but I see you all. I'll take some comments here. So Doreen Virtue, yes, or like Doreen Virtue, you self-destruct. Yes, I was actually thinking about making a video about Doreen Virtue because I think that she was tapping into some like really strong truths, especially about wise ones and elves and all that, like definitely about different soul types. But she definitely got scared. And like you said, kind of self-destruct, and she just kind of I think she doubted herself too, and I think she got very fearful. But there's other theories behind it, and maybe one day I'll do a video, especially since I talk about elven souls, and a lot of the things that she talked about in the past, I think it really aligns to, you know, an elven soul and the archetype that she was tapping into. So I was thinking about doing a video on her, and I probably will, especially just on wise one elf types. Siren of the Void. I'm worried about my own pride of it when it comes up. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you just have to take a step back. You know, the best way that I feel you can just get over the ego is just to laugh at yourself. That's really what your ego likes to take itself very, very seriously. Likes to take its story so very seriously, its role very seriously. And there's a story that we tell ourselves. We just have to take ourselves out of that story and just kind of laugh at ourselves a little bit and look at other stories around us, look at other people. They're having their full-on experience with or without us. And that's really important for every spiritual teacher or guide or anybody who wants to take on that position to recognize. Maureen, it's Morwin. In Stoicism, it's a common teaching to try to be virtuous for its own sake. Virtue is a reward in itself. Yearning for praise and not receiving it can deter you from that. Yes, exactly. Like yearning for praise, like just do things exactly just for virtue's sake, just for goodness sake, just because it makes you happy to make others happy. But the problem is when you start to tell your story, look at all these people that I'm helping, look at all these people that I'm influencing and I'm changing their lives. That kind of story that you tell yourself will start to pad the ego, the spiritual ego, and the spiritual ego will become bigger with the identity that you're a savior of others. And that's, I think, the problem that we're seeing in some people today. And you're right, that's not Stoicism. Because Stoicism, all the Stoics of ancient Greece, they were very much into harmony, and they believed in the idea of equality and helping each other out that way. You know, but they were not about praising themselves, because that was something that, yeah, definitely, they were not for. Katie, I would like to mentor. That's what I call those who humbly empowered me. I like mentor. Yeah, that's a good one too. And I mean, I'm a teacher. I got my degree in teaching. So that's why I kind of called myself a teacher, because I got my master's in education. So that was part of my identity. And then I'm talking about more about spiritual things that I would never talk about in school. But I definitely see myself as more of a mentor. You know, it's like I've been through some things and here I am, I can discuss. And I've also become very analytical about Lord of the Rings, and I have some previous knowledge about aliens and about, you know, the messages that have been before us in that. So that's what my channel is about. I'm just kind of mentoring with the wisdom that I have from my experience. And so, yes, that's exactly it. I like that. Jonathan Melton, very good point. Oh, what point? At 7:30? I probably said something. I don't remember. But yeah, it seems counterintuitive, but labels of all sorts seem less important as I progress. I can list an ever-growing list of labels to describe myself because I'm ever evolving, but the only way to understand me is to get to know me. Yes, exactly. That's true. Like, I think labels are one way to help you identify yourself, but the problem is the topic of spirituality. It's becoming very broad in the idea that because we're in this age where technology has helped so many reach this kind of information, everybody is awakening and they're experiencing themselves in different ways. And so spiritual labels are not needed necessarily, but they're just to identify yourself. You can identify yourself as something, but I think that if you hold on to that label, like I said, calling yourself a spiritual master or a catalyst or revolutionary or something that denotes that you're above others spiritually, that is what we're seeing. And I'm not just talking about Teal Swan, but there's other types of New Age teachers out there that do that. So that's where I'm talking about the labels can be a problem. So yes, Katie, things seem to be moving so fast that I think it may be difficult to stay up on some pedestal, better a surfboard. I like that. Yeah, exactly. They are moving fast, aren't they? I look out, like I said, I'm watching other people's stories and I look out and I see so many people intellectually awaken, spiritually awaken. I mean, they awaken in many different ways, but everybody is kind of finding themselves and it's a very exciting time. But we really, yeah, it is. It's like now we're dealing with the spiritual ego, a lot of us. So it's not just an ego, it's like a spiritual ego, which is attached to the knowledge that you're a spiritual being. It's like, yeah, so now we're having that, and now we do have to kind of just flow and just kind of ride the waves and not get so high up in our spiritual nature that we forget about others having their own spiritual experience, for sure. And so these are all things that have helped me because I have been very focused on that because I have experienced myself kind of be tempted in that way, especially when I started getting, asked to do interviews and things like that. Not that I ever wanted to do that, but there's a temptation that you want to set yourself apart so that your vision can come forward. And so I've made it a very strong habit to do these things that has helped me, just keep my humility and be like hardly known. Oh, I like this. Claire and color. Yes, I struggle with this. An elven guide told me once when I asked for help in this that I should remember the inner light within everyone, even as they act rashly. Exactly. That's exactly what I do, is see the creator being, see the inner divine light within everyone. And also in those that, like you said, they act rashly because in that moment, they might be just acting out from their pain. And they might be in a state of unconsciousness where they don't remember their creator self. They don't remember that divine light within them. So that's really why I think people act out. And you can be a mirror in that moment and you can help them, remind them, or you can just fight back with them. And then, it's ego against ego. But if you selflessly decide to let go of your ego and just become a mirror for them, that's how I think that more that peaceful communication can happen. You can really help someone that way. Jonathan Melton, I just found you again after your live stream. I'm watching your backing of videos, very expansive collection. I do. I have a lot because I like to sing and dance and do all different things, but I'm so happy that you joined on. And I hope you enjoy the videos. Okay. Oh, Katie, I volunteer at a roomage sale. It's great fun, like Christmas, and I love feeling like Santa Claus and recycle. That's good. Yes, and I think when you put yourself into the place of helping others, if you just do it just because you know that it's helping others, and you're just careful with, at some point you can say, yes, like you recognize yourself as a good person, okay? So you're not harming others, you're helping others. That's great. But then don't praise yourself too much where that becomes just your identity. And then you end up thinking that you're better at helping than others. I think it's really just about the idea of competition with other souls. Siren of the Wood. I may just pace myself and step away from spirituality a bit, enjoy other things every other day. Yeah, I think so. That's what I end up doing. I go through periods where, like, I jump on here and I do videos to talk about something that's really close to my mind and on the surface, my emotions and what I want to speak about. But then I take these breaks where I do not do anything spiritual. I just kind of watch, documentaries or comedies, or I go out into nature and I do things that are completely away from this, because you really do need to give yourself a break a bit, because you can get lost. Somebody, if you're a mystic and if you kind of straddle the two worlds between the material world and the spiritual world, you can get lost in that. And so you have to find a way to be able to close the doors of the spiritual world and then enjoy the material world when you want, and then go back into the spiritual world when you want. And so you can enjoy both worlds, and you don't feel, imbalanced in that way. Because sometimes you can spend so much time in the spiritual world reading all these self-help books, watching videos, and doing everything you can to increase your spiritual knowledge, and then your material life kind of suffers because you're living in your head. You're focusing so much spiritually, and spiritual just means immaterial. So it really is about balance. That's good. I like that. Yes, when I do craniosacral therapy, I silently repeat, may I, may I am presence, my presence honors yours, I am presence, and with divine presence, all is well. I like that. Because yes, just like namaste, like the divine light in me honors the divine light in you. And I think that's why I like saying namaste so much. It really does help to keep that spiritual ego in check. And so you could just remind yourself of that, simply just saying namaste to others, and that really helps you to remember, and just take a second to step outside of your story and look at other people's stories. And, it's a joy to see and to watch. And that's what I have to say. And, I hope that this helped you, and I hope that this helps others realize, what the spiritual ego is and how you deal with it. So everyone have a great night, and I'll see you on the next video.